Laura Jacob Hoffman. We're the Emerging Leaders Coordinators. They had a great group of us, and they kind of coached us through the SGA process, the different branches, and some great ways that we could get involved. And so after that, I ended up running in the College of Arts and Sciences for a Senate seat. Spring of my freshman year, I was elected, and through there, I began having some conversations with different people about joining different committees, and I joined for the latter half of the year, so spring semester, and I was on tuition enhancements or tech for the spring semester, and we talked about student-centered tuition enhancements, which is like a separate pool of money, and so I got to sit on the committee for that, and it really piqued my interest, and so I ended up applying to be the chair, and yeah, here I am, I guess.
What was the transition going from being on the chair last year to then transitioning with second semester of last year, and then also with your role in this year as well?
Yeah, so it was a little bit of a learning curve because I had no experience with EOF, or the Educational Opportunity Fund, which is like the money we fund or we allocate for the fall semester. And so it was a great learning experience this year. The previous chair, Sam Sushanik, was really great with helping me. She was phenomenal just as a mentor and was so willing to help me with all questions I had. And Amy Lee, like our accountant, she was great too. So I had a lot of great resources and support. But it's been really great. Seriously, it's such a phenomenal learning opportunity for myself, and also I hope for the members of my committee as well, because there's just a lot of great resources at K-State.
And now getting more into exactly kind of the role and what you guys do on the day-to-day or week to week. Can you kind of explain the process of proposing and approving tuition enhancements?
Yes. So the unique part about the committee, as I kind of mentioned before, is there's two separate pools of money. It's like $465,000 each semester. And so the Educational Opportunity Fund is specifically for things like scholarships. We can fund need-based grants. We can fund undergraduate and graduate student salaries. And so those were some of the proposals we heard this semester from academic coaching. We heard family counseling services. Cat's Cupboard actually came. And then for SCTE, or student-centered tuition enhancements, we hear proposals from departments that are seeking funding for programs that, new programs or initiatives, and that can only be funded for up to 4 years. And so it's things that departments probably wouldn't have received money from the university for. So they come to the students and ask for money for these great ideas. So
how do you balance student needs with budget constraints that you may have?
So this year we were lucky in the sense that we didn't quite have as many proposals as last fall. And so I think we had about 20, and we actually had a surplus of money. And so all the proposals that were submitted ended up being funded 100% of their requested amount, which was fantastic. Last year, we really have to adhere by the criteria that the programs and the initiatives that we're funding benefit as many students as possible. So that's the biggest thing is how many students is this affecting? One of the other key criteria is the sustainability of the program. If it's something that we don't foresee lasting more than 4 years, then it's kind of difficult to throw tens of thousands of dollars at something that you don't think will sustain past 4 years.
What types of projects or services are typically funded through tuition enhancements?
So for EOF specifically, so this semester what we were funding was graduate student salaries and also undergraduate student salaries. And I would say these students are really instrumental in their organizations to help their employers, of course. And it's really difficult to run programs that are helping tens of thousands of students if you have one or two people working in that office. And so these undergraduate and graduate students are really instrumental in making sure that these organizations are running efficiently. They're able to answer the phone when needed. And so it's EOF is really instrumental in keeping those organizations running.
And you talked a little bit ago about making sure the highest amount of students are impacted. How do you ensure that the tuition enhancements benefit the majority of students or the most amount of students possible?
Right. So I think that's an important part of being a committee member and also just being involved on campus is understanding how some of these different programs interact with different groups of students. sometimes you could have a program like academic achievement or academic coaching, and they maybe don't affect like the entire campus. It's maybe more students who are like struggling with a specific issue in class and they're looking to seek help, but that's still like a niche group that requires that support. And so maybe that doesn't affect the entire campus, but it's still, I mean, it's still affecting lots of students. And so you kind of have to take things like that and understand that, well, it's not affecting all of K-State. There's still like important groups that need support.
What role, if any, do students play in influencing tuition-related decisions?
I would say that's a really great question. I mean, it kind of depends on who's on the committee that year, who expressed interest in serving on the committee. For the most part, I think the committee has always done a really great job of understanding the needs of everybody at K-State. As the chair, it's kind of my job to make sure that we are doing that and we're not, looking to fund just like one specific group or like one specific area at K-State. And so I really haven't had a problem with anybody not wanting to fund something or, being like stingy about money in those areas.
I kind of want to get into like the collaboration within your committee. How do conversations flow in regards to decisions being made about tuition enhancements?
Yes, so again, one of the unique aspects about this committee is that we don't deliberate about any of the allocations until the very end of the semester. And so just a few weeks ago, actually, we kind of met. We had some snacks and whatnot and got to talk for a few hours about all the different proposals that we heard and how important we think some of them are to campus and like how necessary they are to be funded, I guess. And it was also really a great learning experience for a lot of the committee members that hadn't heard of some of these resources at K-State before. And it was also a great way to see how like organizations like Cats Cupboard interact with student government and require like some of that student funding. I think it's just a really interesting way to see how we're directly impacting campus.
What would you say has been one of the biggest challenges within your role, and how did you work through that, or just general challenges as well within your time in SGA?
Yeah, that is a great question. My biggest challenge kind of occurred over the summer. I was very new to the role still, and I had only served for half of a year on the committee, and so really understanding like the statutes and the bylaws, and we work within fiscal years, and so we're working within fiscal year like 2025. And so that was, as a political science student, I was like, okay, well, that's a little confusing for me. So I think just understanding how like a lot of our funding regulations and like impact the departments that requested money, and also like understanding that for myself and then being able to convey that to the people that were seeking funding or having issues, and really just being able to convey that. And also understanding how, there's some extenuating circumstances that may hurt like departments in receiving that money. And yeah, so it's just very much a learning experience for myself.
When we come back, we're going to keep talking to Evelyn about her role on the Tuition Enhancements Committee as the chair member. I'm your host, Cole Dutchendorf. You're listening to the SGA Weekly Update on Wildcat 91.9. You belong. To the SGA Weekly Update for the final segment before a 2-week hiatus due to Thanksgiving. Evelyn, you got any Thanksgiving plans?
I think so. We have a lot of Manhattan family that are coming out to our farm, and we're going to kind of hang out there, just relax and not have homework. So
yeah, amen to that. Amen to that. I want to continue talking about your role within that Tuition Enhancements Committee. Could you share an example of a successful initiative that you funded either this semester or that you know of that's been funded in the previous year or two?
Yeah, so last semester, spring semester, of course, for SCTE, we had Dr. Burkhead come in from the political science department, and he was really excited about possibly renovating the 3rd floor of Calvin Hall. If you've ever been in Calvin Hall, I love it. Bless its soul. It's a little bit older, not as nice as the business building or Hale Library or anything like that, but Dr. Burkhead was really adamant to get some money for that, get some new furniture, paint the walls, some new lighting up there. It literally looks like a little section of Hale Library now. And so there's like a little plaque now. It says like SCTE funded, and that is something I'm really proud to be a part of the committee for, is something like that.
How does the committee work with university administration on funding priorities?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, for the most part, I feel like it's kind of up to the committee members to, decide different initiatives. There's another committee within SGA that focuses on some different initiatives that they would like to see pushed out in the university. But tech specifically, we kind of just take our proposals and, kind of run with it. And so, like, if there's something really, again, like Cats Cupboard, I continue to use it as an example. I think they're just a great resource for students, and so that's food security is a great initiative to continue to we want to see succeed, and so that was an example of something that we wanted to work with administration on to fund.
We talked a little bit in that first segment about kind of evaluating the effectiveness of funded programs. What criteria do you use to do that evaluation?
Yeah, so definitely like understanding how many students are affected by these proposals or different things like that. Scholarship like criteria is another thing. There's a lot of great resources within tech for like scholarships for departments, like first generation student scholarships, minority student scholarships. There's even some that are specifically for like military or military affiliated. So yeah, as a whole, the Tuition Enhancements Committee is so like, we really just want to see as many students as possible succeed at K-State.
How does the committee handle competing priorities for limited funds?
Definitely, I would say we look at how some of these proposals have utilized their funding in the past, and so if there's issues in terms of like returning a lot of money, or like maybe they don't use all of their allocated funds, we can look at that and say, okay, well, maybe you could stand to lose about $10,000 or something, and this could go towards another initiative. Also, we look at student engagement, how many students they're seeing over the course of the semester, if that's been improving. COVID, of course, had a lot of, it definitely hurt a lot of programs here on campus, and so I would say definitely looking at student engagement.
How has your role as chair evolved during your tenure?
I would say I've grown. Definitely in confidence. I am a lot better in talking to like administration, sending out emails, different things like that. I've made a lot of really great friends, and I'm really thankful for the people that I've been working with on my committee, and like our advisor, Derek Jackson, and then also Amy Lee. They've really supported me and helped me grow through the process.
What advice would you give to students looking to make their voices heard within tuition discussions?
Yeah, so I would definitely say if you're a student on campus that is really adamant about starting an initiative, or you see something on campus that you're like, well, I think I have an idea of how to make this better, reach out to a department head or somebody in administration who you think could help you with that initiative. Fill out an application, submit it by December 13th, and the Tuition Enhancements Committee would love to hear about it.
And you mentioned earlier that a bulk of the things get done at the end of the semester. So has that happened yet?
Yeah, so for the previous semester for EOF, we already submitted our recommendations, and like I mentioned, all the proposals were funded 100% of what they requested. So for the spring semester, we probably won't start deliberating until, I would say like April-ish. But we hear presentations the entire year. So.
And will you be the chair for the Tuition Enhancements Committee into like next April?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. What advice would you give for the next Tuition Enhancements Committee chair?
I would say definitely don't restrict yourself. If there's things that the committee has funded in the past, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to continue to fund them. If there's a really great idea that pops up in the next few years, and maybe it's something that's a little bit scary that the committee hasn't funded before, it's like uncharted territory, go for it. I think those are what tends to be the most memorable aspects of, campus. And so I think like this Calvin renovation was something that the committee hadn't dealt with before. And I mean, as a result, a ton of students are using the third floor. So, I mean, honestly, just go for it.
Yeah. There's one more question I want to get into, but unless you have any more thoughts. What feedback mechanisms do you have in place to gauge student opinions on funding priorities?
So I would say for the most part, in terms of like getting back to tech, I would say students go through departments or like different programs. And so when administration comes in to give these presentations, they usually have a lot of like student engagement feedback. So if there's, and even me personally, like if students are seeing something on campus or like they don't know where to go, please reach out to me. I'm happy to say my phone number or email or whatever. I would love to help people get connected to resources or like strengthen ideas or point them in the right direction for things.
Well, Evelyn, thanks for coming in today. I appreciate you taking the time out of your Friday before Thanksgiving. I know that might not have been the easiest thing to do in the world.
Yeah, that was awesome. Thank you so much, Cole.
Yeah, for sure. This was this week's edition of the SGA Weekly Update. We'll be back in a couple of weeks on December 6th. Obviously, we will not be meeting next Friday. December 6th, we'll be meeting with Lauren Walter, and Ibrahim Chiefchi. That's the External Affairs Director and the Multicultural Affairs Director. Until then, have a great Thanksgiving break. And again, you were listening to the SGA Weekly Update on Wildcat 91.9. You belong.